Hello, I'm Ronak, and today I'm just going to be talking you through our APIs. So at Seckle, we basically offer a product that allows you to quickly set up an investment platform on top of your offering or as a new offering. We offer that both through our UI, and then we also offer all of the functionality through APIs, which you can connect to and build on top of. So to give you an example, we recently had a client called Chip who came on board. They have around 300,000 clients who have savings accounts, but they didn't at the time have an investment proposition. So what they've done is, in about 2 months, they've built a GIA offering on top of our APIs, and now their clients can also sort of pay in money, invest it into the markets, and hold investments using our functionality. So I'm just going to walk you through today. We've got two sets of docs. One is kind of a reference documentation, which I'm showing at the moment. This just gives you all of the different endpoints we have and the relevant sort of actions you can create off the back of those. But it's a bit less user-friendly, so I'm going to walk through the quick start guides, which basically walk through the same endpoints, but in the way that a user would use them. So just to quickly go over the overview, this is split into a few different sections. The first is all to do with setting up your firm. So when you first basically start one of these propositions, you probably want to set up firm charges, branding, set up your users and set up scopes. So this section just details how we'll do all of that for you and makes it really easy to do. Then we've got a section that covers client creation, retrieval, information updates for your clients. So effectively, once you've set up and you've got going, the first thing you'll want to do is create a sort of holding place for information about each of your clients with like their date of birth, national insurance, and so on. That allows you to do that and then retrieve any information you have about clients. Thirdly, setting up wrappers. So obviously, once you've set up a client, what you effectively want them to do is be able to invest in GIAs, ISAs, SIPs. So this allows you to do that. Then setting up payments, withdrawals, and then managing those investments. The last three are largely optional, but transferring in assets is one where if you want to allow clients to transfer in their books from other providers, then you can do that as well. And then the last two are to do with communicating important information to clients and creating reports that your clients need to see. So I'm just going to dive straight into it and start talking through the docs. So starting off with the onboarding clients flow. So when you sort of go to create any of these flows, what you can do is read the documentation to see what exactly is happening on that endpoint. And then there's also Postman documentation that you can download from the page. So if you scroll to the top of the introduction, you can click Run in Postman over here. And I'm just going to do that. So these are the quick start guides that I previously downloaded. To start off, we want to log in. So this is just authenticating my user. That returns an API token, which I can now use for all of my following requests. So the first request we're going to send is create a client. So I've got this client that has got particular information filled in. It's got their email address, their national insurance number, etc. I can now send that request and I retrieve back a client ID. So what this is saying is I've successfully created the client. This is the ID that you need to use to retrieve that client's information going forwards and do anything else like create accounts for that client. So now I'm going to retrieve that client using the client ID. This is all set up already in the documentation. So we've got tests set up that store the client ID, which then passes that to this retrieval endpoint. So now when I retrieve that client, I can see all of their information. We've then got a list clients endpoint. So this basically lets you see all of the clients in the firm that you've set up. You can update particular fields. So you can change, for example, this person's name to Stephen, and you can change their bank details if they've recently changed bank account. There's a few other update endpoints here, which I won't go through in too much detail, but those are effectively the key client endpoints that you'll be using. There's another option if you're creating, if you're basically hosting a pension proposition, then often what you'll want to do at the start is provide an illustration. So that's a regulatory requirement. It's a document that you have to provide to your client, which tells them what their investments could look like over 30 years. We produce that document for you. It involves quite a lot of complicated calcs, but you can just do that through our API and then follow that flow through to create a client. It effectively creates the illustration, creates a registered client, which is just a client with minimal details, and then allows you to update that client once they've confirmed that they want to go ahead after seeing the illustration that you've generated for them. So now you've set up your firm, you've created a client, and you now want to basically set that client up with a GIO or ISA. So this is going to allow you to do that. We've already created the client, so I'm just going to skip to this create GIA account step. As you can see, there's a bunch of information in here, but notable bits are the wrapper type. So that's down here, which is GIA. That could be a GIA, an ISA, a SIP, an offshore bond, or a JISA. You've got kind of minimum amount and maximum amounts that you can be charged. You've got the advisor tiers. So you can basically, if you're operating an advised business, or even if you're operating a non-advised business, then you can specify charges. You can specify a from amount and a to amount, and then you can specify the amount that you want to charge on what's held in the account. So I'm just going to send that request. And now that creates an account ID, which you can use for follow-up requests. So now let's retrieve that account, and then we're going to pay in some money. So this is a deposit by bank transfer of £50,000. I send that and I get a payment ID back. So this payment will stay as pending, which I'll just show. So I've just created this payment, but that's got a status of pending until the point where the cash actually lands in the account. So offline, what's happening here is the client's made an expectation saying they're going to pay in money. Then they've gone onto their online banking and they've sent a bank transfer in for £50,000. As soon as that comes in, that will automatically settle, and this will appear as settled. So we're just going to mock that for now using this endpoint. So that's now settled, and if I list this payment again, you can see it's completed now. So there should be cash in that account now, which we can use to make an investment. So let's move on to the managing investments section. So I'm first going to go through investing directly because we've just paid some money in. So let's create an order. So we're going to buy £1,000 of this asset. We can work out what that asset is in a second, but let's just make the investment. Then we can complete that order. So this again is just mocking what would happen in reality. In reality, what happens is you make the order, it goes to market, and once it's completed, then all of the units show up in your account. So that's done now. And now you can retrieve the order. So you can see there's a completed order for £1,000 worth of Sainsbury's stock, and that's all within the account. So in terms of investments, there's effectively 3 different ways that you can invest. One is what we just showed. So you've paid in some cash, then you've invested directly in the assets that you wanted to. You can choose the assets using a sort of list assets endpoint, which allows you to search for specific stocks or funds or ETFs that you want to invest in. Those are the asset classes that we offer at the moment. Some of the next sections that we might want to look at are transferring in assets. So let's move on to that section. So what this is basically allowing you to do is, let's say you've got a product already with an alternate provider, then this will allow you to transfer in that amount. So here we're putting a product transfer in of cash from a previous provider. You just send that request in, this will get processed by our operations team, and then the money will be sent across. So it's as simple as that. That's effectively the key functionality that we've gone through. You can also withdraw money. So we've gone through payments, orders. Withdrawal works in the same way as a payment, but it's a payment out. We've gone through setting up model portfolios, and then we've talked through transferring in assets. The last kind of bits are basically communicating key bits of information to your clients. So generating documents and statements. So here we're generating a valuation statement. Then we're retrieving that client's messages. So we can see that they've got sort of communications about them having a new account set up, a trade being completed, there being updates on their client. Then I can retrieve a specific message if I want to and display that to the client. So this is the new account message that I'm displaying to them. And if there's a document in that message, then I can basically display and download that. So this allows you to do the whole process of all of your regulatory docs, retrieve them, and then provide them to your client. And then finally, we've got a section for creating reports. At the moment, this is just to do with illustrations, which we mentioned earlier. All in all, this is effectively all of the API docs you'll need to set up an investment proposition on top of our APIs. And you might use this if you're a fintech, or if you're trying to include embedded finance in your sort of product offering that maybe isn't to do with finance at the moment, or even if you're an advice firm that's trying to set up an advice business and wants to build your own user interface.